and welcome to POLI-TRICKS with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies, bringing you the news you can use as it pertains to the idiocracies in politics. I don't care if you're Republican, Democratic, Libertarian, Independent. There's something you can get from this broadcast. Knowledge is key, and the key to your freedom is knowledge. Vote. Don't forget to vote. Tell someone you know who isn't voting to vote. And don't throw away your vote. Listen to politics so you know how to vote, so you know how to make an impact and do what you gotta do to have a better future for you and your family too. POLI-TRICKS with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. I'm going to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do when it comes to voting. Get the information you need from this guy indeed. POLI-TRICKS with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies, bringing you the truth about politics. No filter. Vote. Don't be afraid to vote. Vote or your ass will choke. Welcome to another episode of POLI-TRICKS with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies, giving you the real-ish regarding politics. Merc, do your thing, man. Do your thing.
I wish I could be as upbeat as you are, brother, because I know it's just been a lot of just horrible stuff happening lately.
Bro,
you know.
I fake it till I make it, man. I fake it till I make it. Trust me. This voice does not match the mood at all.
and I'll tell you, and I gripe about this every week, but there's so many moving parts in the news cycle that I have something all written up, and then next thing you know, it just something else happens, and then everything just gets flipped upside down. So we had another horrible shooting yesterday in Texas. Someone brought up a point. They said that when Columbine happened all those years ago, Columbine shocked the entire nation, right? Now Columbine is not even in the top 10 as far as shootings go. So we had, everybody knows this by now. It was Devin Patrick Kelly walked into a church yesterday with a Ruger AR 556 rifle, and he basically just started shooting people. And it turns out in the breaking news, it looked like he was trying to target his mother-in-law, who he blames for the failure of his relationship with his baby's mama, but he ended up killing his grandmother-in-law. Her mother got killed in the attack. She wasn't at the church. So basically, 26 people were killed, 20 more were injured. So basically everybody who was in the church got shot, whether they died or not, including children. One child got shot 4 times, and the last I heard, that was about lunchtime, the kid was in surgery, and thoughts and prayers go out. And it's hard for me to say the word thoughts and prayers, because I think of these bullshit politicians who say it all the time, who say it in every shooting. They say, my thoughts and prayers go out to the families of the shooting victims. Now, if me or you say it, right, or if other people say it, that's fine, But if you're a politician who gets paid by the NRA, and especially if you're Paul Ryan or Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell is the Senate Majority Leader, Paul Ryan is the Speaker of the House. So any bills that get passed go through them on either side of the, on either side of Congress, and they don't do anything, but yet they will be the first one to say, oh, my thoughts and prayers go to the family. They go out to the victims. And I'm going to channel The Rock here, okay? Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, you can take your thoughts and prayers, and you could turn them sideways, and you can shove them up your ass. Every time I hear these guys speak, I just want to shit blood. It's like, that's how mad I am at these guys, because they have the power to do something, but because they get paid so much money, they won't do anything so long as those checks keep clearing. So they've basically put human life just below money. You know, money's the most important thing to these guys. Money and green illness. You know, and I got excited. Got the echo going on there, but
when you say cream, you gotta have the echo. Cream. Cash rules everything around me.
It's the question is, when is enough going to be enough? Because now I feel that we're at the point where it's out of their hands and it should be in our hands as the voters. Because I know it sounds ridiculous because we've been going through this for the last 20 plus years, but you would figure these people are just so easily duped into thinking that, oh, you know, Second Amendment, it's the law. We can't change it. The founding fathers put it there, so it just stays. But any other law that is created, they can just change if they don't like it. They on The Simpsons, they had a spoof of Schoolhouse Rock, right? And they asked the guy who's the amendment to be. The kid asked him, well, why can't we just make a law against flag burning? And he goes, well, that law would be unconstitutional. But if we change the Constitution, we can make all sorts of crazy laws. You know, they'll do that when it's convenient, but they won't do that to save lives so long as those checks keep getting cashed. So whenever I hear politicians say, oh, my thoughts and prayers, at least on the Republican side, because I will say one thing, I may be at war with corporate Democrats, but at least when it comes to social issues, they are still on point. You know, they're trying their best to get laws passed to, expand background checks. And speaking of expanded background checks, you know, the governor of Texas had the unmitigated gall to ask, how was he able to get a gun? Well, it's because AR-15s are considered to be long guns, right? So they're put in the same class as shotguns and hunting rifles. So put it like this. This guy was, the shooter was Air Force. He was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force because of abusing his family, his wife and his kid, right? So basically, because of that domestic abuse allegation, not an allegation, I mean, it was for real, he should not have been able to get guns. But because of a error from the Air Force not giving that information to the FBI, it was never part of his background check. So when he tried to get I want to say it was a concealed carry license, a license to carry a gun, he was denied. But he wasn't denied from getting a machine gun. Well, it was not a machine gun. It's a assault rifle. You know, machine guns are fully automatic. He was able to get those, but he couldn't get a handgun because of his background check. But because it didn't get onto the expanded background check, he was able to buy an assault rifle. Now, another narrative that pisses me off is the whole good guy with a gun thing, because the shooter was shot twice by a neighbor who came up with his gun and confronted the shooter and then shot him twice, once in the leg and once in the torso, right? And then he got away and then ended up shooting himself, killed himself, right? So, of course, Fox News and Breitbart and Alex Jones and all of them were like praising this guy. He was like, yeah, the only way to defeat a bad guy with a gun is with a good guy with a gun. Here's the problem. By the time the quote-unquote good guy with a gun showed up, he'd already shot everybody in the church. And I don't mean to be laughing at people's absolute misery, but I'm just laughing at people like Alex Jones who think that this was a good thing, that this guy showed up way late to stop the shooting. The only thing that would have stopped the shooting was the background check, because then he would not have been able to get a gun in the first place. And that was a failure from the Air Force and failure to not have expanded background checks. Texas has been denying that type of stuff for the longest time. And the people like Greg Abbott, the governor, who's like, well, how did that happen? How the fuck do you think that happened? It happened because every time they try and get sensible gun laws, they keep denying it. The people of Texas voted for Greg Abbott because they wanted open carry. Because in their little fantasies, when they go home and get their fleshlights and they start beating off and they just keep thinking, you know what? One of these days is going to be a shooter. I'm going to come around and shoot him. I'll be a hero. Be on the cover of Time magazine. And basically he was on the cover of Not in Time magazine. Because by the time he got there, over 40 people got shot. Because the whole good guy with a gun thing does not work. Because those good guys with guns are not law enforcement. They don't have training. So, I'm gonna ask you, Blue. I know you're on and off, but who needs to get shot for this thing to move forward? The whole gun control thing. Who needs to take a bullet in the spine in order to get this gun control thing moved forward? Yeah. I just hate talking about this thing every few weeks. I will give Dianne Feinstein one thing. Before the Vegas incident happened, she was trying to outlaw bump stocks. Bump stocks of what the Vegas shooter had that turned his semi-automatic into a fully automatic, right? And she had tried to pass legislation to outlaw bump stocks. And, of course, it never saw the light of day. It didn't even come up for a vote. They talked about it after Vegas, and then they just buried it again. So we're just going to be talking about this every few weeks until the right person gets shot. And I don't even know who that would be. We lost 20 school children in Newtown, and that still wasn't enough. We lost over 60 people in Vegas, and that still wasn't enough. We lost 26 people in the church, 20 more. Out of the 20 who got shot who didn't die, 10 of them are in critical condition, fighting for their lives. And that's still not enough. What do we have? A whole stack of thoughts and prayers. Thanks, Congress. Thanks. So. But speaking of Dianne Feinstein, she is getting primaried. Her and Joe Manchin from West Virginia. Dianne Feinstein, of course, is from California. And they're both getting primaried. So Allison Hartston, who works for Justice Democrats, she is running against Dianne Feinstein in California. Joe Manchin, his challenger is Paula Jean Swearengin. Right? Now, their chances of, these guys are incumbents, right? You figure Joe Manchin is very popular in West Virginia because West Virginia is very conservative. Even their Democrats are conservative. But the problem is that the Bernie wing is very strong in West Virginia, right? Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary won West Virginia by a lot. He either won every county or almost every county in that election. But as a whole, Donald Trump won West Virginia by a lot. In a landslide, he won West Virginia. Right? So it's going to be tough. Dianne Feinstein is a dinosaur, not just because of her age, but because of her ideas. But she's a name that everybody knows. So a challenge is for Paula Jean and for Allison, it's going to be an uphill battle. But there is a point to all this, right? The point is that this internal struggle is not just something to sell newspapers or to get clicks. The internal struggle within the Democratic Party is real. Okay, and it's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets any better. But now, instead of uniting and going against the Republicans, they're trying to get the corporate Democrats out. And I saw these articles, from the establishment, and they're just like, well, it's a bad idea to primary Joe Manchin because, he could win. But here's the thing. Joe Manchin votes along with Donald Trump 67% of the time. Voted for almost, if not all, of Donald Trump's nominees. My thing is this. I'm not going to be the type of guy who just goes against Donald Trump just to go against Donald Trump. You have to look at what he's trying to push and then decide, is this good or is this bad, and then vote accordingly. But you can't just say, oh, Donald Trump is pushing thing A, so I'm against thing A. That's not how it's supposed to work, right? But everything Donald Trump has been pushing has just been pure garbage. There's no bill that Donald Trump has pushed so far that maybe go, oh, I think this could actually work. Let's give it a read and see. Now, on its face, the shit that he's pushing is terrible. And Joe Manchin voted with this guy 67% of the time since he's been president.
Well,
so tell me,
if you're a Republican or even if you're a Democrat, no matter how wrong an ideology might be, unless your base is just like, wow, don't do it, then you might be like, I'm not going to vote for it. But look at the voting records for some of our politicians, and you'd be like, what? They voted for that? But we also got to remember one key thing, and you might have mentioned this and I wasn't paying attention because I smoke a lot. A lot of times people vote for something because there's something inside of that bill that has something they want or need. Does that make sense?
Yes, it actually does. And it actually works in reverse. They may vote against something because there's something in that bill that's harmful. Like, for instance, when they voted against that bill for the sanctions, right? Mm-hmm. They were putting more sanctions against North Korea and I forgot who else. But it also included sanctions against Iran. And at that time, like, Bernie Sanders voted against that bill, and he came out and said, I do agree with sanctions for North Korea, but I don't agree with sanctions against Iran because Iran is doing everything that they agreed to do. So everything they did in their deal, they're even complying with the deal. So there's no need to put more sanctions against Iran. So the bill still passed because, it's sanctions against North Korea. But to your point, there was something in that bill that Bernie Sanders was like, I can't vote for this in good conscience. So he knew it was going to pass, so he could afford to not vote for it. But people would look at it on its face and say, oh, why wouldn't he vote against sanctions against North Korea? And it's not that simple, But, Dianne Feinstein is an opponent of single-payer health care. And that is a huge thing right now. People want single-payer health care.
Understandably.
Now, but Obamacare, go ahead.
My hope would be that bills will be more simplified, that they only have one component per each. So it might be HB1A, HB1B, HB1C, and you can vote on each component of it. That way certain things can pass instead of them bundling, what we call bundles, like Comcast gives us, these bullshit-ass bundles. What the fuck do I need a home phone for? Well, if you want this good deal, you'll get the 3-for-1. But nobody has a home phone in 2017.
Right.
I remember my sister didn't have a home phone when I came back to America, and I think this was like 2003. Yeah, I came back in 2003, and she was like, oh, I got a cell phone, da-da-da. And I said, what, you don't have a home phone? It was the most appalling thing on earth. And now somebody come up to me and say they got a home phone. I'm like, what the fuck, you got a home phone? It's the most appalling thing to me on earth, you know what I'm saying?
It's like, what are you, an invalid? Why do you need a home phone?
Right.
But, they do that when they have bills that can't pass on their own. So if you have, like, for instance, all those bills that pull the teeth out of the ATF, right, and weaken their ability to enforce gun laws, these weren't straight up bills, because if they were straight up bills, they would have been defeated on its own. So they put them as riders, they call them riders. They put them as riders on must pass legislation. So, and only in the rare instances do you have what they call like a line item veto, where the president could take a bill that passed Congress and then veto certain parts of it and then not others. So it's usually he either has to approve the whole thing or just veto the whole thing. you figure in a state like California, California has, what is it, 1/8 of the country's population? Right? Mm-hmm. They have a horrible housing crisis in California because they let a lot of rich people come in and buy houses and not live in them. And then you also have foreign entities like from China and Russia who buy houses and don't live in them because they're using it to launder their money to keep it away from their governments. So they have these houses. It jacks up the price. It was like, what was I watching the other day? Goldberg's. And Adam and his grandfather, they dress up like rich people when they go to auctions and bump up the prices just to make them pay double and triple for ridiculous looking art, you know. But that's what it does to the housing market out there. It bumps up the prices. So they have a horrible housing crisis out there, right? Which means a horrible housing crisis means a lot more homeless people. A lot more homeless people means a lot of people without health care. You know, in the single payer system, all you would need is your card. So as long as you're a citizen and you have a pocket to put your card in, you can get health care. But, you know, the corporate Democrats are against it. Like I mentioned on Saturday, the Speaker of the House in the California legislature won't bring single payer to a vote. You know, because you figure between and then the same thing is happening in New York. You know, both of them are Democratic control, but there's a faction out there of Democrats who caucus with Republicans, you know, because they're getting that cash money. And because they're getting that cash money, they are holding back progressive ideals. So that's why a lot of these corporate Democrats like Joe Manchin, like Dianne Feinstein, are going to get primaried. Now, the thing is, will these people win? Probably not. Paula Jean Swearengin right now only has 8% of the vote. And that was in the poll that I saw that was from September, right? But the thing is this, the election is not for another year for both of them. So a lot can happen in a year, you know. But
and a lot can happen. More mass shootings, more more things that come up in the news regarding how bad Trumpageddon is, and yet he still walks on his high horse.
I'm trying not to talk about 45 because
the more things change, the more they stay the same, and this is the most insane staying I've ever seen.
Yeah, and you know, of course, you know, 45 ran the playbook to the letter. He said this isn't about guns. It was about the shooting. It wasn't about guns, it was about mental illness. But he reversed an Obama-era executive order that makes it, and so now it's easier for people with mental illnesses to buy guns. So this guy wasn't really mentally ill. He was just, you know, he just hated his mother-in-law. You know?
Oh, okay, that's rational.
In other words, he didn't have a registered mental illness. He wasn't diagnosed with anything. I mean, he was just he abused his family and, you know, stuff like it. Was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, but he was, as far as I know, he was never diagnosed with any specific mental illness. So for Trump to say that it was mental illness, that's just his defense mechanism because the shooter's not Muslim. You know. And of course, I was going to say, well, he didn't call for the death penalty. Well, he did die, so he's already got his own death penalty, so we don't have to worry about that. But then again, there's still 26 people who are also dead who shouldn't be. You know, a story landed on my desk. I say a story landed on my desk like I work in an office and people walk by and just drop stuff on my desk. In other words, an article appeared in my inbox. There you go. It ended up being an older article, but I thought it was a little worthy to talk about. It happened back in August. Speaking of Greg Abbott, speaking of Texas, and this is from The Hill, right? It says Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed into law a bill that prohibits health insurance companies from covering elective abortions of any kind. This includes insurance plans on the Obamacare exchanges and even private employer-based plans. So proponents of House Bill 214 are hailing its passage as a victory for state taxpayers who are no longer compelled to subsidize medical procedures that they may find morally objective. So, and then the author of the bill even called it an exercise in economic freedom. Lost in that line of reasoning, however, is the fundamental concern for a woman's most basic human rights. Smithy is the guy who wrote the law, purposefully does not make any exceptions for an elective abortion, even in cases of rape, incest, or severe fetal abnormalities. Some abnormalities, such as bilateral renal agenesis, a disease where a baby is born without kidneys, or I know I'm not pronouncing this right, anencephaly, where a baby is born without a brain. These are completely incompatible with life, yet a woman may still have to carry those fetuses to term. In fact, only if a woman's life is in danger is an exception made. So in other words, in Texas, your insurance does not cover you for abortions, right? Now, even if you are raped, even if or a victim of incest, or even if your baby has an abnormality, which means it will not live or will live a short life. So, it's really tough when it comes to Texas, and I know I mentioned before about Texas having a really high teenage pregnancy rate because Texas teaches abstinence over education. So they don't want women to have abortions, but the thing is they can't just make a law that says you can't have abortions because of Roe v. Wade. Abortion is the law of the land. If a woman wants to have an abortion, you can have an abortion. So they do all these things to make it much more difficult for a woman to have an abortion. So now they're like, okay, well, if we can't tell you not to have an abortion, we could just say, well, now it's not covered by your insurance. Okay. You had, back in the 70s, right? You had, what was it called? The Hyde Amendment, right? Long story short, I'm not going to read that whole block of text, but the Hyde Amendment is basically abortions were no longer covered under Medicaid. So you figure in Medicaid, it serves 6.5 million women in the United States. One in five of those women are at the reproductive age. So women between ages of 15 and 44. So the Hyde Amendment says that if you're on Medicaid, it won't pay for your abortion. Right? Abortions could be expensive. They start at like $500, you know. And if you're
$500, then to pay $18,000.
Right.
Actually, no, it'd be more than that. Shit, $100,000. I'm tripping.
Oh yeah. But to raise a kid, yeah. You know, I heard a comedian say we should start for the pro-lifers, we should start a buddy system. So every time you block an abortion clinic, you get to take home a little buddy that you have to feed and clothe and educate for the next 18 to 24 years. You know, they make it their problem, but then it becomes not their problem. So when the child is born, then they take away all the programs that help the child. I was going to talk about the tax bill, but that's going to be its own show next week. But one of the provisions being taken away is the tax incentives for adopting children, which means that if there's not going to be a tax incentive to adopt a child, some people may pass on the adoption because children are expensive, you know. So if you're adopting a child and you get that tax incentive, I know some people don't adopt children just for the money. Okay, some do. Let's just be real about that. Some people do get it for that stipend, but, you know, at least in the economic, I don't want to say the economic burden because that just seems wrong. But if you're taking care of a child, right, and every dollar counts, and you're getting a tax stipend or whatever they call it to adopt, and now that's being taken away, it's like you're burning you're cutting your bridge at both ends. I know that doesn't really make sense, but think about it. You don't want women to have abortions to the point where you're going to make sure that they don't have insurance for it. But on the other end, anything that they do, so in other words, you don't want them to have welfare. You also don't want them to adopt because you're taking away their tax credits. You don't want women to have contraceptives to prevent unwanted pregnancies. I wish they would just come out and say, I hate women. I wish these legislators would just come out and say, I hate women, I hate their long hair, I hate their vaginas, I hate their fingernails, I hate their dresses, I hate their stupid faces. Just say that, and I'll be like, oh, okay. You're still a sack of shit, but at least I understand now why you would do that to a woman. Instead of just making laws that are just anti-woman all the way. I am not pro-abortion in the least. I am pro-choice. I believe that a woman should have the choice to do what she feels is best for her. And if she is making a decision that's not good for her, like, and in this case I would say using abortion as birth control, that's where the education comes in. But to take away a woman's choice is ridiculous. Now here's the other thing, right? I had to fact check something because they called it rape insurance, right? What this bill was. Because this bill does not cover abortion in the case of rape. So I had to look it up on Snopes and is this really rape insurance? And technically it is rape it's basically like the Reaganomics of answers. Because it technically is rape insurance, but that's not what the bill is called. The bill's not called rape insurance. That's what the opponents call it. But when you look at the basis of it, that's exactly what it is rape insurance. Now, here's the worst part. To me, if a woman wants to have her abortions covered by insurance, she has to buy supplemental insurance in order to be able to have insurance pay for her abortion. You know what supplemental insurance is? Basically, if you have homeowners insurance, right? Your homeowners insurance will cover you in case of a fire. If a pipe bursts in your house, you're covered. If a piece of a space shuttle flies through your living room, you're covered. That was actually in my declarations page. It actually mentioned if a piece of a space shuttle or a satellite flies through my apartment, I'm covered. So, I'm hand to God, I'm not making that up. But you are not covered in case of an earthquake. You are not covered in case of a flood, right? That's a whole nother set of insurance. So that would be supplemental insurance. So that's insurance on top of your other insurance that covers things that your base policy doesn't cover. So if a woman wants insurance, so let's just say she gets insurance through her job, and her job gets all high and mighty and say, well, I'm not going to pay for your abortions. She would have to buy supplemental insurance in order to have it pay for her abortions. So if people can barely afford their insurance policies now, then they got to get more insurance on top of that just to pay for one thing? Come on. They're killing me here. But that's Texas. And a lot of other states are trying their best with anti-abortion laws. They've been closing abortion clinics, and I forgot what state it is. One of these southern states. But they only have one abortion clinic in the entire state. So if your abortion clinic is at the bottom of the state, you live at the top. To get an abortion, you have to drive hours to get to that abortion clinic. I never understood in this country, if you tell somebody, people are so quick to tell you what to do, while on the other hand, saying you can't tell me what to do. So I can't tell somebody, why do you need an AR-15? Well, I need my AR-15 in case Al-Qaeda comes over here and tries to and tramples my garden, Oh,
I love that voice. That was good. That's a good voice. But I have a proposal. We're all about solutions on POLI-TRICKS.
Yeah.
I propose that we need to ban all Caucasian males from buying guns until we can get this figured out.
Oh, I wish. There'd be a lot less church shootings. A lot less church shootings. Oh, one other thing, backtracking about the shooting, Alex Jones and Mark Cernovich, they already started spreading the rumor that the shooter was Antifa. Basically, Antifa was on the grassy knoll. Antifa faked the moon landing. Antifa was the reason why we lost the Vietnam War. Antifa is just anti-everything. Antifa is the reason for the deficit. Instead of thanks Obama's gonna be like, thanks Antifa. I know there's like Alex Jones nuts out there who believe that shit, but all you gotta do is look on CNN. They were like, Antifa, what? What the fuck are you talking about? Snopes already had an article about it because that rumor spread so fast. You know why Alex Jones people believe anything that he says? Because Alex Jones supplements are filled with lead, and the lead is fucking up their brains. That's all that is. When they're eating their male virile gorilla formula or whatever the hell he puts in there, and all that lead is just dampening their brain cells, so they'll just believe any horse shit that Cernovich or Alex Jones says. Now, I will say this, right? I'm on Twitter, right? I've got, matter of fact, hold on. Let me look this up real quick. I'm kind of curious now. I should have put it in my notes, but it just popped in my head. I have 50 followers on Twitter. 50 followers exactly on Twitter. Right. So you figure, how would I be able to get into the big time? Right? How would I be able to get like thousands and thousands of followers? Right? You figure Barack Obama, he's like top shelf, right? Barack Obama has 96 million followers. Right. I would say Donald Trump has a lot of followers, but a lot of his followers are like bots, or just made up accounts. Donald Trump has 42 million followers. So Obama is better than Trump at everything. He's better than him at Twitter. He's better than him at life. Better than him at family. But anyway.
But he ain't better than him grabbing them by the pussy.
Oh, Trump's got that beat. He don't even wait. He just starts grabbing them.
You need Trump to get it, or Trumpeteer. Come on now, get it right now.
Right. But I figure, all right, how do I get 10, 15, 20,000 followers on Twitter? Well, there's a simple formula for it, right? Number one, find a picture of a semi-attractive woman, right? Okay. Step two, name my Twitter page something obnoxious like Patriot Watch or American Freedom Fighters, right? Step three, spout nonsensical nationalistic horseshit all day long. Rag on immigrants, rag on Antifa, rag on Black Lives Matter, rag on the Dreamers, do all that stuff. And then step four, just sit back, let Trump staff retweet you, and just let the followers just come on in. It's so easy, even the Russians can do it. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because there was two popular conservative Twitter personalities, right? One was someone named Jenna Abrams, and another one was named Pamela Moore. And they were followed by tens of thousands of people, including Trump's campaign, people in Trump's campaign. So Jenna Abrams had 70,000 followers, right? Mm-hmm. Pamela Moore was, her tweets were featured in USA Today, Washington Post, BBC. She even made a tweet about CNN airing porn during Anthony Bourdain's show, which turns out was not true. But here's the thing. These people, they don't exist. They were Russian trolls out of that Russian troll farm in St. Petersburg. So basically, this is how easily right-wingers get duped. Because nobody... I mean, here's the thing, okay? When I say that they get duped, that's not entirely fair, right? But it's basically just like that whole Piper thing. Like, all right, here's an example of one of Jenna Abrams' tweets. You come into my country and you ask me to change our traditions because it offends you. And then she put hashtag refugees not welcome. All right. So at the time when they got that clip, it had 185 likes and 165 retweets. Now, I'm a small timer on Twitter. The most amount of retweets I've ever gotten was like 4. And I lived on that for like a week. I got 4 retweets. This bitch tweets out hateful shit, and she gets 165 retweets. You know. And then Jenna Abrams, you know, also had another tweet. To those people who hate the Confederate flag, did you know that the flag and the war wasn't about slavery? It was all about money. That got 139,000 likes and 59,000 retweets. And then when people respond to that, it spreads it even more. So it's like a virus almost. And come to find out that they were nothing but Russian bots. So how easy is it to get right-wingers on your side? All you gotta do is just spout some hateful stuff, and bam, you have 70,000 followers. You know. Pamela Moore, on her fake site, she said, I would rather take care of 10,000 homeless U.S. veterans than 50,000 migrants and illegal aliens. And then she says, how about you? Right? That was... what was that? 4,800 likes, 4,700 retweets. You know. And then you even had Michael Flynn retweeting her. Now, Michael Flynn is another matter altogether. I'll talk about that more on Saturday, because they're saying that they now have enough evidence to indict him in this whole Russia thing. So that's going to be interesting. But my thing is this. Nobody ever on the right, so long as you're on that same wavelength, no one ever researches. They just go with it. Like, for instance, I had one of my friends posted a video from somebody named, what was his name? David Wolf? Not David Wolf. His last name is Wolf. I'm trying not to put up Facebook, because it can be distracting sometimes when I'm doing the show. But I'm trying to find out this dude's name because I wrote about him today. And, hold on, see if I can't find it real quick. What was his name? I apologize, I know this is unprofessional. Usually I have my notes in front of me. Damn, I post a lot. It was David Wolf. All right. It was David Wolf. And I'm going to read what I wrote, okay, on Facebook today. David Wolf, noted conspiracy theorist, put out a video saying that children who are vaccinated are sicker than those who are not vaccinated. The reason why this caught my eye is because he was putting up all these numbers and, you know, that this time is more likely to do this and this time is more likely to catch that. And I'm like, well, where are your sources? So then I saw the name in the corner, like David Wolf, and I'm like, I got to look this guy up because this is not sounding right. So who is this guy? Is he some sort of scientist? Is he some sort of doctor or something like that? No, he's just some conspiracy theorist jackass. So I wrote, the good thing about being a conspiracy theorist is that you don't have to cite any sources. You just say whatever comes to mind. It's easy. I was like, this motherfucker wrote a book about how the earth is flat, despite the fact that you could see that the earth is round from outer space. Okay? And I'm going to take his word on vaccination. Man, fuck out of here. I'm not doing that. He actually wrote a book about how the earth is flat. He wrote a book about it. He sat there in front of a typewriter and he typed this shit out and he gave it to an editor. And the editor was like, I'm high on crack, but you know what? I guess I could print this. And then they printed it. And somebody bought it and they read it and they were like, I guess the earth is flat. So all those pictures that they're taking from outer space of the earth being round, that's just a conspiracy theory. The moon is round. Mars is round. Venus is round. Saturn is round. Uranus is round. All these planets are round. Jupiter is round. But the Earth is flat. Because, you know why? Because we're special. Has anyone ever seen the edge of the Earth? Has anyone ever fallen off the edge of the Earth?
Well, there was that one time in band camp.
A lot of crazy shit happened in band camp.
You ain't never lied. I remember one time I had my trumpet and But to my point, I looked this dude up and I was just like, I had to see what this guy is all about before I even entertained his horse shit. Right wingers never do that. Now I don't know if they shut down those accounts, right? And let me see something here. Let me see if they actually put up a did she have a blue check next to her name? No, she didn't have a blue check. I guess she wasn't that special. But the thing is, nobody researches people. So long as they're talking their language, they'll just accept whatever they say. So I wonder how they feel knowing that these people are Russian trolls, right? Are they going to be like, oh, I can't believe that I fell for this? Or are they going to be like, well, they were talking my language. So I don't know, but I always feel like I don't want to come out my face and say that liberals are smarter than conservatives. I feel that that's not true on an individual level, but I do feel that that's true as a whole. And I disagree. I feel like the person making the money that's pimping these hoes and getting all the motherfucking money like Monopoly, they're the smartest motherfuckers of all. Don't think they stupid because they do the bullshit that they do. Remember, they are only catering to their own needs, and that takes a special kind of intelligence.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But the only problem is that every time you hear about, what was it? Sam Houston, that's what it was. I spoke about it on the show about a month or two ago, where they put out and I don't know if it was Russians. I think it wasn't Russians. It was a left-wing prank that they were going to tear down a statue of Sam Houston, right? And I remember saying, I know very little about Sam Houston. I know the city of Houston is named after him. Other than that, I don't know anything about him. Sam Houston's not a Confederate.
You mean Sam Houston, who used to play for the Knicks?
No. I forgot all about him. But no, not that Sam Houston, the historical figure who founded Houston. Like, they named the city of Houston after him. But I'm like, why would they be tearing down the statue? He's not a Confederate. But didn't matter because that whole place is filled with a whole bunch of right-wingers with their guns. One of them ended up like shooting himself by accident. He wasn't killed, thank God, but it was still ridiculous, you know, how nobody researches anything. You hit them on that wavelength and then they just run out and then they just, you know, do ridiculousness, for lack of a better term, you know. And sometimes it's funny, but sometimes it's downright dangerous.
Freddy's back.
Pretty much. Did you hear about the woman who got fired for flipping off Donald Trump's motorcade?
I'm sorry, Blue's not here right now. It's just Freddy. Yes. Tell me about your dreams, little one.
You should have did that voice a few weeks ago for Halloween, man.
Blades make you wet. I'm sorry, I'm tripping. Oh, man, that's my favorite. That is actually my favorite horror guy. But as far as the lady who got fired for flipping off, well, you know, that's against the law. That's an obscenity. But no, I didn't hear about that. I don't watch the news.
Yeah. Well,
I get my news from POLI-TRICKS with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. I mean, really, I do. I ain't gonna lie to you. You break it down for me. You don't amp it up too much. You don't take away that doesn't need to be taken away. You don't mold it into something to feed the masses. You just tell it like it is, and I appreciate that.
So, and I don't have to see the visuals of it. I think the visuals and hearing it will kind of mess you up if you have a mental illness like I do. See, I like the fact that Trump repealed that mental illness law. You know how many guns I have now?
I got a whole closet full of guns.
Ooh, yeah, I do.
All I need is an event to show up at with my guns.
Yes, where will I go tomorrow? Seems like the Mid-South is getting all the love. Let's see what we can do out here in the East, in the most racist state of the nation. Because we hate gays for no reason with the HB2 laws.
Oh, no, there's a reason for that they hate gays, but it's not a reason I can get behind.
I get behind you. You like that.
You know what? Put it like this, pun not intended.
Okay, friend. Ooh, that's how you like it, Daddy. Ooh, y'all.
I totally caught myself out there. But you are right about the whole thing about it being an obscenity, right? Basically, this woman's name is Julie Briskman, right? And she was riding her bike, and she lived in Sterling, Virginia. And the president has a golf course out there. So the motorcade was leaving the golf course, and she was riding by, and they passed her, and she just starts flipping off the motorcade, right? Now, a White House photographer snapped a picture of her doing it, and it made it into the photo pool, and then it became a viral photo, right? So one thing that the article doesn't make clear is if she did actually make it her Facebook photo, like her profile photo. That I'm not sure of, but it was on her personal Facebook account. Now, when the picture started to go viral, she figured, let me nip this in the bud and let me talk to HR, right? But HR was like, yeah, well, that's, you have obscene, because she works for a government organization, right? They have it's not a government organization, but their company has a government contract, right? It's a Akima LLC, right? So they said, well, it breaks your terms of service. You have obscene stuff on your social media. We got to let you go. Right. She's 50 years old. She's a mother of two, and like I said, this was just accidental. Like someone just took a picture of her flipping off the president, and next thing you know, she's losing her job over it. Right. And I almost passed this off as a non-story. I'm like, it's not really enough for me to talk about. She did work for a government organization, flip off the president. It just looks bad. What are you gonna do? That's something that if Trump saw her, Trump would be really mad about it, if he even saw her. Obama doesn't care. I've seen Obama get mad at news people over his policies. So if he has a policy he feels is going to help someone, and people are trashing it, he'll get a little salty defending those policies. But if you talk about him, he don't give a shit. It's like, I'm the motherfucking president. Care what you have to say, Brush that dirt off my shoulders. I've never seen Obama get mad about, even when they did a roast of him on the White House Correspondents' Dinner, he laughed right along with everybody else. Trump would have gotten mad at that, because he's thin-skinned, But, and like I said, I always pass this off as a non-story, except for one thing. So toward the end, she said that she had a male colleague, right? He was reprimanded for calling on social media, calling someone a fucking libtard asshole on Facebook. And his Facebook page had Akima LLC as his cover photo. So he was literally representing the company, and he got into a fight with someone on Facebook and called him a fucking libtard asshole. But he didn't get fired. They let him delete the post, and he got to keep his job. So this woman
a bad
who...
thing? Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I think there was a little bit of a double standard here. If they both got fired, or they both just got a reprimand and then got a warning, that's one thing. But how come she got fired for something that she was doing in her, had nothing to do with the company? She wasn't riding for the company. She was just riding for exercise, and then just happened to see the president roll by. That could have easily been me. When we had Pat McCrory at my job, I was so glad I was off that day. And they were like, "Oh, you missed Pat McCrory." I'm like, "Oh, I would have missed him, all right, because my aim is not that good. I would have thrown my shoes at him." Fuck Pat McCrory. I'd have been just like that dude who threw his shoes at Bush. But
we call him Bushalina.
But I don't feel that. I mean, if she got fired because she broke terms of service, fine. But how come someone else did it with their letterhead and got a reprimand, and she got fired for something that she did on her own time?
I'm gonna tell you why. It's a man's world.
Pretty much. Pretty much. It's a horrible double standard, Women always, I don't mind when women get a double standard in their favor, because for every double standard they get in their favor, there's like 10 more that are against them, And personally, I don't think she should have gotten fired either way, but I do see where it looks bad if you have a government contract and one of your employees is flipping off the president. But then again, I would have done the exact same thing. I know hindsight is always 20/20, and I'm not in that situation now. But come on, if Trump was at an event in Cary, right, and I was like 10 feet away, how could I not just be like, "Yo, fuck you, Trump"? How could I not do that? It would be impossible for me to not curse Trump out if he was 10, 15 feet away.
And then them boys put them things on your blah, 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 blah.
That's all right.
And I'd be like at the funeral, like, it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
I just been like, "Fuck you, Trump. Your tax plan sucks." And then, yeah, sure, Secret Service would have beat the shit out of me, but
for sure, they would have grabbed you in your pussy. You know what I'm saying?
It would have been worth it, though. But it kind of brings me to something where, I mean, if I went on a racist tirade, like there was a video of a guy, and he was some sort of contractor, and he saw a black guy with long dreads, and he was filming, I don't know if he was filming a documentary or filming for his job or whatever it was, and this guy just basically just lit into him with this whole racist tirade, called him a nigger and, called him a monkey, and just went off on him. And the whole thing was caught on camera because the guy was videotaping, right? And someone recognized him and the guy lost his job. And to me, that's perfectly fine. If I went on a racist tirade like that and I lost my job, I'd be upset that I lost my job, but I don't understand. Because nobody wants a person like that representing their job. But on the other hand, I see that more, what she did, as First Amendment. You're allowed to disagree with your president, even if it means flipping him off as he drives by. You're allowed to do that. That's First Amendment. You're allowed to show your displeasure to your politician, even your president. I call Paul Ryan a sack of shit 5 times before I have my morning oatmeal, and I call him a sack of shit 10 more times before I go to bed.
I prescribe that you don't watch that show anymore. Seems like a lot of built-up anger inside of you. You pack of shit, you pack of shit, yeah.
But I mean, and that's what she was saying. She was saying, because someone asked her, why, what made you flip off the president? And she remembered all of his shitty policies, coming down at Dreamers and all the other stuff, and and he's coming out of his golf course, and she just couldn't help it. She was just like, yeah, fuck you, as he rode by. It just happened that someone caught a picture of it, and it went viral. It's like the late night hosts were talking about it, So it was really no way around it for her, but I don't think she should have gotten fired. Yeah. So.
Well, opinions suck, and so do you.
We'll see what happens. But hopefully, if this goes viral enough, hopefully, maybe she may get a GoFundMe account to help her out until she gets another job. We'll see. But, all right. That's all I had, but we got a little bit of time left. Blue, what's on your mind, man? What are you thinking about these days?
Man, I feel like this is the Matrix for real, for real. I just can't believe that this shit is going on in my lifetime. Like, what the fuck is going on, man? I thought I was insane before. Well, now I figure I must be the sane one because the world is crazy, man. You know what I'm saying? Woo!
I never thought I would have to worry about Nazis in my lifetime.
Right. I feel like I'm Duke Nukem right now. I'm about to get these guns out because, as a mentally insane man, they removed the thing in place for me not to be able to get all these fucking guns.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when a shooting like that happens, they're like, well, how'd that happen? Go ahead.
And then when I do it, I'll be labeled an ISIS terrorist or something to that effect. Versus if my white brethren did it, oh, it must be mental illness. Well, you know what? Hey, put some more funding in mental illness. Do something. Don't strip away Medicaid and the funding necessary to treat people who are diagnosed with mental illness. You know what I'm saying? And then cry mental illness when they do a mass shooting, when obviously it probably does have some attributes associated with mental illness. But for the most part, it's these stupid-ass gun laws because we never hear about mass killings in Canada, Australia, Japan, Germany. I can name 500 other countries if I knew the names off the top of my head, but I don't.
and you figure with Australia, they haven't had a mass shooting in 20 years. Because when they had their horrible mass shooting, when somebody walked into that cafe and shot all those people, and they had a conservative in charge, and they were like, no more.
Zoom out. When was the last time you heard of one in England, Canada? Nations that kind of feel like ours a little bit. You know what I'm
saying? I haven't, because they don't let people have guns.
Do we really need guns in 2018? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But for the most part, if we didn't have guns, I know I would feel a lot safer. You know what? I don't walk outside my house after 10 o'clock. And sometimes my dog has to go. I'll be like, oh, well, motherfucker, you have to suffer. Fuck you. I'm not walking out there because there's white people walking around with guns and they'll shoot my black ass. All right.
They'll just be like, you know what? He told his dog to attack me.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, his vicious mini schnauzer was so vicious and rabid, I had to protect myself.
And you know what? That'll probably fly. I'm like, hey, that dog could have bitten him right in the ankles. Maybe could have torn his ACL or his Achilles heel. So you know
probably
what?
Not even appropriately vaccinated. Oh my gosh, I have worms.
That wound that tiny little bite could have become infected, and then what?
Because I don't have appropriate health insurance because of these jacked up. You want to appeal to Affordable Care Act, you fucks. Man, this is funny. You know this is the Matrix for real, right? I want you to really understand this is the Matrix. It just can't be nothing else, man. I saw a glitch in the Matrix the other day. I talked to you about it off air. I'm telling you, the Matrix is real, man. I'm not crazy. I am crazy, but that's the point. The point is, yeah, okay.
So, but next week I'm gonna dig into this whole tax thing because it just seemed like I had other things I want to talk about, and this whole tax bill is just an absolute mess. It's an absolute shit show. And I make this analogy all the time. For these guys in Congress, it's like they're gonna have to try and sell dead goldfish at the fair, where you can see the goldfish that like floating at the top of the bowl sideways.
Sounds tasty.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to sell those fish. And it's not going to be an easy job. I mean, right now, the tax bill only has like a 32% approval rating, and another 40% are undecided because they're still looking it over. But I mean, this whole tax plan is it's a horrendous giveaway to the rich, and it's just horribly, horribly blatant what they're doing. But they're going to try and sell it to the rubes as, you know, it's going to be good for everybody. So, I mean, and with all the added incentives all together, like someone like Donald Trump could save up to 40% in their taxes. So,
but I think saving in your taxes is a good thing. I mean, really, I mean, I ain't mad at the rich because they want to save their money. I mean, whether they earned it or didn't earn it, it's still theirs. Why are they taxed so heavy? There has to be a formula that can tax everybody fairly.
But there can't be, because it's just too disproportionate on what these people make and what we make. So you figure if they tax you at, I'm just making up numbers here, right? Let's just say like person A makes $30,000 a year, right? And let me get my calculator out. So if he pays pre-tax, right? If he makes $30,000 a year and he's paying 35% in taxes, well, 35% is a bit much. Let's just say
everybody down to 20%, 20% across the board.
That. So if you take out 20% of his taxes, right? Hold on, what's my percentage key here? Here we go, right? That means out of his $30,000 a year, he's paying $6,000 in taxes, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you have somebody who makes $150,000 a year, right, and you subtract 20%, that's $30,000. Now, here's the thing. So somebody will look at that and say, well, hey, person A is only paying $6,000 in taxes. Person B is paying $30,000 in taxes. Person B should get a tax cut. But here's the thing. Person A still has $120,000 left of his money. Person B only has $24,000 left of his money. So by the time he finishes paying rent, so here's the thing. If you pay rent, and let's just say generously, if you pay $600 a month in rent, that's already $7,200 a year in rent. Nobody pays $600 for rent. You know, not unless you live in a studio apartment, or you got a really good deal, or you live in with a lot of elderly folks, right? So you figure out of your $24,000, you're already spending $7,200 just in rent. So that doesn't include food, doesn't include utilities, doesn't include clothing, doesn't include your car note, doesn't include your insurance, right? So who's still going to have a hard time
paying that much anyway? Actually, a little bit more, Merc, if you did the math. So your point is invalid, to be honest.
How so?
A single person making $30,000 is paying about 20%, if not more. I believe it's 35%.
I pay about 30%. I'm single, and I pay about 30%.
So you pay them more than the proposal I just said for 20%. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's still brutal.
It's brutal, but you're doing it, and there ain't much you can do about it. But if I knock you back down to 20%, you got a little bit more room to play with. 20% across the board. That's what I propose. But I ain't nobody. I ain't no politician. I ain't Donald Trump again. You know what I'm saying?
But here's the thing, right? You have what's called an effective rate, and then you have a rate that's put on paper, right? So, like, for instance, back in the 1920s, right? They had the effective tax rate, and I know I'm getting my terminologies wrong. Like I said, I hadn't written this part of it yet, but the effective tax rate was 90%. So when you make over a certain amount of money, so let's just say, I'm making up numbers here, okay? Let's just say you make $10 million, right? And everything you make past $10 million gets taxed at 90%, right? But no one ever pays at 90%, because you have your tax accountants and you have your fancy, numbers people, and they go ahead and they whittle that down. So you, instead of paying that 90%, you may pay 50, 60%, right? So you figure if they knock that down to 20% for across the board, all these rich folks with their fancy accounting they're going to whittle that down to almost nothing. And then, on top of that, they're removing the, I'll probably go into it more next week, because that'll be like a whole nother show if I started on this now. So
make that a specialty show.
Yeah. And then that's what
101.
Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do next week.
And his band of eclectic cronies.
Yeah. Because I said there's no way I could talk about this tax bill and just have it not be an entire show. And I know it would seem kind of boring, but you know me. I got my goofy analogies. I'll make it a little bit more entertaining. But
yeah, I know.
But that tax bill, I mean, the more I read into it, the more I was just like, yeah, this is not going to fly. This is not going to work at all. So we'll see what happens. But that's all I had.
All right. Well, that was a very interesting episode of POLI-TRICKS with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. Tune in via your favorite podcast app by subscribing to The Urban Breakdown. And that's where our various shows tend to break it on down. All right, y'all. Be good. Yeah. Yeah. Freddie says so.
Love. Oh.